Before today's video, we want to bring you a word from AppZone, who is a regular sponsor of this channel. AppZone is an app that suggests games to play, and then you earn money for just trying the games. Then the longer you play, the more you'll earn. AppZone pays out instantly through retailers like Google Play, Xbox, Visa, Steam, Amazon, and more. Every week I seem to find a new game which is a lot of fun to play, and I'm getting paid out in Amazon gift cards. If you download AppZone by clicking on the link below the video, you'll be directly supporting Criminally Listed. So help us keep the lights on and start earning money for yourself for playing games by downloading AppZone today. Without any further delay, here's today's video. Number 3. Joseph Dressler. On August 6, 1978, the small town of Muskota, Illinois, was holding their annual homecoming parade. 34-year-old Joseph Dressler, who was the vice president of the Muskota Bank and Trust, participated in the parade. After the parade, he dropped off his wife and 2 young children at home. Dressler was supposed to return to the homecoming festivities because he was supposed to be an escort for the homecoming queens. Unfortunately, he never made it there. Around the same time that he should have been escorting the homecoming queens, his screams were heard by a couple living in rural Freeburg, Illinois, about 10 miles away from the park where the festivities were being held. The couple looked out their window and saw a car on fire. They got into their own vehicle and drove towards the flaming car. When they got to the car, they saw Dressler, who was on fire, running through a bean field screaming, "Help me! Help me!" They tried to help him until the ambulance arrived, but there wasn't much they could do for him. He was rushed to the hospital with first, second, and third degree burns on over 90% of his body. The police were able to interview him, and he said when he arrived at the park where the homecoming was held, 2 teenagers with knives confronted him. They forced him to get into his car, and then they made him drive out to the country road. Once there, they splashed gasoline on him and around his car. Then they torched the car with him inside of it. The police aren't sure how Dressler got out of the car because when the fire department got to it, the doors were all closed and locked. The fire was so intense that it melted the windshield. Dressler didn't know his attackers, so he wasn't able to identify them. A few hours after being brought into the hospital, he fell into a coma. He died 5 days later, on August 12th. 2 days after Dressler died, a 15-year-old girl who lived in Muskota told a friend that she was the getaway driver for the 2 killers. News of the confession made its way to the police, and she was arrested. While in police custody, she claimed that 6 people were involved in the murder. However, the police couldn't locate 2 of the people she accused, and out of the 4 that they did find, they cleared 3 of them and couldn't implicate the final one in the crime. Nevertheless, the 15-year-old was charged with the murder. At her trial, it was revealed that she had psychiatric evaluation 2 years earlier when she was 13. The evaluation said she often told stories and she thrived on notoriety. She also recanted her confession several times. Her trial lasted for 3 days before the charges against her were dropped. No one else has ever been arrested in connection with the barbaric murder of Joseph Dressler, and the case is considered cold. Number 2. Claire Hill's. Claire Hill's family moved from England to Australia when she was 2 years old. When she was 15, she started dating a guy that her father didn't like. She ended up running away, and she moved to Auckland, New Zealand, using a fake passport. After a few years, she reconciled with her family, but stayed in Auckland. When she was 21 years old, she got married and became a Jehovah's Witness. Nearly 7 years later, the marriage had come to an end, and Hills had left the religion. In April 1998, she was working as a manager at the McDonald's at the Auckland airport. On April 28th, she was scheduled to start her shift at 3:30 a.m. On the evening of April 27th, the manager who was on duty forgot she had to wake up early, and he called her at 9:45 p.m. They discussed the restaurant's stock, and the duty manager didn't notice anything unusual. The next morning, Hills didn't show up for her shift. At around 6 a.m., the fire department was called to a parking lot on Mangere Mountain. There was a black Mazda Familia hatchback on fire. In the back seat of the car, they found the charred remains of a woman. She had to be identified through dental records. The body was 30-year-old Claire Hills. The fire department determined that the car had been doused with gasoline and then set on fire while Hills was in the back seat. The medical examiner determined that Hills was alive when the car was set on fire. Bones around her neck were broken and her skull was fractured, but the medical examiner was unable to determine if those injuries were the result of the fire or if they happened in an assault before the fire. She had also been sexually assaulted. The police tried their best to piece together what happened that morning. It's assumed that Hills woke up at around 2:30 a.m. and started getting ready for work. Her home showed no signs of a disturbance, so they don't think that she was kidnapped there. The police think that she left her home sometime before 3 a.m. and then it was a 17.3-mile trip from her home to the airport. Of course, she never made it to work. A woman walking on Mangere Mountain saw a flash of light at around 5:45 a.m. She noticed that the flash was a fire that was still burning, so she walked towards it to investigate. She saw a man around the car, and as the fire was getting more intense, the man ran towards her. The man was startled to see someone else, so he turned around and ran in the same direction that he had just come from. The witness then went to a nearby home and had the residents call the fire department. The woman gave a description to the police, and it resulted in this sketch. Other people who lived nearby saw the man running away from the area where the car and Claire Hills had been set on fire. The police aren't sure when Hills encountered the man who sexually assaulted her and set her on fire. It's possible that she was attacked while getting into her car when she left for work, or she may have been carjacked along the way. He may have even been a hitchhiker that she picked up. It's also possible that Hills knew her killer. Hills' family said that she would swing like a pendulum between drugs and religion. She was also very secretive. She would only tell people little bits of information that she wanted them to know, but she rarely told anyone the full story. The killer may have been a scorned lover that she told no one about. One thing that the police do know is that the gas can used to drench the car in gas didn't come from Hill's car. The police believe that the killer probably filled the gas can full of gas sometime between 3 a.m. and 5:30 a.m. They questioned people who were working at gas stations in the area during that time, but no one remembered a man filling up a gas can. A longtime suspect in the case was serial sex offender William McCarrica. McCarrica was convicted of sexual assault in 1991 when he was just 18 years old. In 1999, he was again convicted for sexual assault. He had broken into the homes of 3 women and sexually assaulted them at knife point. In 2007, the police had a profile developed from the DNA that was left from the sexual assault on Claire Hills. It was compared to McCarrica's DNA, and it was not a match. The police are now comparing the killer's DNA to DNA databases in different countries. Until they find a match, the case of who set Claire Hills on fire will probably remain cold. Number 1. David Cole and Timothy Fowler. In the spring of 1982, best friends David Cole and Timothy Fowler were 17 years old. They lived just miles apart outside of the small town of Deerfield, Michigan. They were good kids who wanted to open their own auto body shop after they finished high school. In their spare time, they were working on a 1968 Mercedes-Benz. On May 9, 1982, David's mother and stepfather were in West Virginia visiting a relative who was sick. They left David home alone. While they weren't thrilled with the idea, Timothy's parents let him stay with David while his mother and stepfather were out of town. After all, they were good kids. At about 12:40 a.m. on May 10th, a call came in to the fire department. The Fowler family saw the fire trucks drive by them towards the direction of David's house. When they saw the fire trucks, they got a sickening feeling in their stomachs. When the fire department arrived at the two-story farmhouse where David lived with his mother and stepfather, they found it completely engulfed in flames. It was determined that the cause of the fire was arson, and Mark and Timothy had been murdered. Mark and Timothy were dressed in their street clothes, so the police think that they were awake when the killer came to the house. The young men were probably forced to get into a bathroom that was adjacent to the kitchen. The bathroom was a new addition to the house, and it didn't have any windows. The lock was on the outside of the bathroom, and once they were in the bathroom, the killer locked the door. The killer then splashed gas on the bathroom door and around the kitchen. He then started a fire and left the young men to burn to death in the bathroom. One of the young men tried to survive the fire by filling the bathtub with water and then submerging himself. Unfortunately, that didn't work. The bathtub, which was made from fiberglass, had melted around him. The police conducted an extensive investigation, but unfortunately, no arrests were made. The detective who is currently assigned to the case says that he has come up with 12 possible scenarios as to what happened that night. He also said that he has 5 suspects. In the years since the fire, 2 of the suspects have died, and 1 is currently in prison. The detective thinks that Mark and Timothy were most likely killed by a young man who lived in Petersburg, Michigan, which is a small town about 10 miles away from where the young men were killed. The young man from Petersburg was a romantic rival of either Mark or Timothy. The detective thinks that Mark and Timothy were burned alive because of a fight over a high school romance. The police have never had enough evidence to charge anyone, but they hope that one day, someone with information about the deadly fire will come forward. The families of the 2 young men are hoping for the same. Mark and Timothy were killed on Mother's Day, and their families say that every Mother's Day without them has been very tough. Thank you so much for watching today's video. If you liked it, please subscribe for more videos just like it. Please don't forget to visit criminallylisted.com where you can suggest cases and buy merchandise. Please also check out our Patreon page where you can get access to an exclusive podcast. But that's all for today. Thanks again for watching.